Hi, this is David Villade with Practical Software Solutions. Today I'm showing Sage Intacct's CRE module, that's construction and real estate. And it's a huge module, so powerful, so much that I can show. My goal today is to cover as much as I can, and I might not go into all the detail that I could, but at least I can show just a cross-section of everything that we have to offer here. So I like to start, whenever I'm in Sage Intacct, I start with a dashboard. I love this dashboard. This one's called Project Performance. And just a little recap for those new to Sage Intacct, there's a few things going on here. One is if you see old dates, this is quite old, but we have dates that we will roll back in demos just to have more complete information when we're walking through all the functionality. But in real life, this would be real time. In fact, I usually take this date off the dashboards, but that's a decision to make. And I also have all sorts of filters here. Everything you see here, customizable, all done right within the browser. And lots of powerful things here. Let's see, a few things to point out before I get into the detail here. These numbers are all drillable, which is great. So when I get down into the actual detail below, I can drill into any of those things, or this little KPI here, key performance indicator, call this a performance card. If I'm intrigued by this project profit margin, I can click on that and pop open actually the report. So this says, hey, I'm up 1.8 million this month. That's great that things are moving up. Arrows are pointing up. That's great. I can see there's the 1.8 million. Sure enough, I can compare that to the prior month. Okay, interesting. I can see all that. And all these numbers, like I said prior, you can drill into these. So just at a glance, I can see my income here up quite a bit. I can see this net over or under billings. So if you're a construction company that is concerned with WIP, where you have under billings or over billings in a given month, hey, we have a whole module to automate that built into the CRE part of Sage Intacct. I also have all these different costs. And like I can see, for example, this cost of equipment, I didn't have any last month, but I do this month. If I want to know more, I can click into anything I see here to find out more to the story. Also, I have lots of filters here. I'll try not to go too long on this, but you'll see a sort of busy list when I hit this drop down. Apologies for that. This is a demo environment I use a lot, so I've cluttered this up a little bit with a lot of different things. But what this is telling us is that we can make different groupings of, in this example, projects. For example, current projects, backlog projects. In my environment here, we get to stipulate what kinds of project types we have. So that's for anyone who uses the CRE module, you get to say, well, this is this type of project. And I have some that are set up as hotels. I also have project managers. So every project manager could have a different version of the same dashboard. That means I get to set up a single dashboard, but it can be used in lots of different ways by different people and see different numbers. I can even run this for an individual project, but we'll get to that later. I'll come here and back, but let me just, for an example here, I'll toggle over to the hotel project. And if I hit apply, you'll see that the system will update here and will populate with numbers. Numbers all change, of course. And now I'm seeing just all the financial information related to the hotels projects in my world. So that's pretty powerful. I get to see that so I can find what I need to find really quickly. And if I don't want to limit myself to just those hotels, I'll go right back to the way I had it. Okay, and I'll show another example here. So take a look, if you would, at this project overview. This tells quite a story here. I can see a list of my active projects. Great. I have some contracts. So the original contract that I have, I can drill into that in a moment to show more. Approved changes and the total. So, hey, we have change orders. You'll see that momentarily. A budget or estimate. So I can estimate my costs, which means I know what gross profit I'm expecting and the margin related to that. Commitments are commonplace here in construction. So if I had to put in a purchase order for subcontractor labor or for some future cost related to a project, I put in the purchase order and that automatically shows up here on my dashboard and in all my reporting. That's really great because that means I don't even have a liability yet. I haven't received anything from the vendor yet. I don't have an invoice in hand, and yet I'm still I'm still considering those costs that I'm projecting so that I can have those commitments and I can see those right away. The billings I've had, total cost, and so on, gross profit all the way through. Now here's something interesting. I see this bright red number here. Ooh, what's going on there? So we can see, well, that's interesting. This Lakewood Distribution Center project doesn't have a contract, doesn't have an estimate. I don't have any commitments, and yet I have some amount of cost here that has made its way through to that project. Well, it's possible that that could have happened. I could have set up the project and had a cost come in before I entered some of these other things. Sometimes life happens fast, but I have a suspicion that maybe that was a mistake. So I want to see more. So I'm going to drill in on that. So I can either click, well, really any of these numbers here, but I'll click on my cost. And let's take a moment to look at this. So I can see here a nice financial report, very small little account number. It doesn't have to be this many digits, but that's what I have here. And this tells me a little bit. I can see it looks like there's this one document number, and it has 2 lines on it, and it adds up to the number I saw on the prior window or on the dashboard. Great. Okay. Still don't know a lot here. Like what is this telling me? I don't really know the story. Well, I'm going to pretend I'm a programmer. I'm going to customize. And this type of programming doesn't require any coding. It just means checking boxes and picking different options. So we have other videos here, but this is an example of what we call a dimension. So don't be intimidated by this, but this just means these are tags. These are different things related to my account number. These can be required, and this or not. And this shows me like different ways that I can mix and match my financials. So I was looking at this transaction here, and I'm trying to decide, is this the right transaction for this project? Well, let's see. I'm going to add the project name to that report. Okay, so that's the project name, but you can see that I have departments, I have IDs or names, I have locations, employees, okay? Let's add a few things. I could add all, but let's add the cost code and the cost, let's see, cost code name, that sounds fine. And maybe the cost type here. I can move the order up or down, but that looks okay to me. Names instead of IDs, sure. Well, that looks great. I'll hit okay, and I'll hit view, and I will go back to that report. And now I've added a little bit more information. So now I can see I've just added a few bits of information here. This tells me a little more. Okay, I see this is in fact going to the Lakewood Distribution Center. This is electrical subcontractor cost, and it's a subcontract, obviously, that's the type. Okay, well, I still have questions, so that's good. Now in real life, if I wanted to, I could click this email button and I could send off an email to a colleague. I could drill into the transaction and use something called Collaborate, where I could actually message other people in accounting and say, hey, I have a question about this. But let's just pretend I want to keep moving ahead to see more. So I'm going to click ahead. Now I see the accounting for that document. I can see that it's very old because this is a demo transaction. And I can see this all came from a purchasing transaction. So let's take a look at that. Great. So I can see there's the transaction, there's the date, we saw all that. And sure enough, if I look farther down here, I can see that's the project, cost code, and everything related to it. I don't see any attachments. That's interesting. That might have helped me here. But if I look at this here with further review and I say, oh yes, that's Turfnell Inc. Yes, that's not this project. There's been a horrible mistake. We've coded this to the wrong spot. Fortunately, well, it doesn't actually matter on the backside, I suppose, but I could see we haven't paid it yet. So a lot of systems out there would force you to void this transaction or remove it entirely and start over. In this case, I don't have to. If I have security and if the period's open and a few other caveats there, I can click edit and I could say, you know what, that's not the right project. Let me put it where it belongs. And just that fast, I can correct it. So things happen in a hurry, we can keep up with all that. I'll linger here just to point out a few more things. We already talked about attachments being here, messages we can have. I do have retainage, of course, being construction requirement here for most industries here. I can put in a retainage percentage and see the amount retained. Looks like this didn't have any such retainage. I see the vendor here. I could drill in on the vendor if I'm curious. I could have done this in steps prior to this, but I'm choosing to do it here. And I can see even like a vendor compliance tab to see, oh, do I have all my insurance up to date? What about my lien waivers? Is there anything else I need for vendor compliance? And by the way, the system can either warn me when I'm about to pay a vendor that is out of compliance or stop me entirely. That's just a decision that you make, and a decision you can change your mind on over the course of time. So let's pretend I got here and I was all happy. So I will cancel this. And maybe I decided, you know what, that is actually okay. So I didn't change it here. I left it as it was. But if I keep working my way backwards through the report that I modified, it does take me back to the dashboard where I saw it all. Let's show a little bit more though. So that's interesting about dimensions and about everything underneath, but I want to see more about a project. So let's take a moment here. I can drill into any of these numbers like we saw already, but I'm going to pick just this top project and make this a little bigger. And let's take a look at the project itself and just kind of see. I won't go field by field, although I'm tempted, but let's just look at some of the information that we have on this project. All right, starting from the top, of course, we have the ID, which we can assign, and the name and the customer. So all these fields we can fill in. Invoice with parent is interesting. So we can do parent-child relationships. So that way, it's something we can always change after the fact, of course. You can see I could hit edit and I could change that. That's useful if I want to look at any project on its own, but then also as part of a larger group. That's perfect. Those dimensions, lots of ways to slice and dice my information. That's like those tags I said earlier, like cost code, cost type, department. These are all dimensions in my world, along with the project manager. And you could just kind of scan through a lot of the fields we have related to retention or dates or scheduling, all for the taking. We can make a field that is not required if we want to. So that's a business decision on how we want to use some of this. I'll switch ahead here to my cost codes. So pretty elaborate set of cost codes we have here. It looks like I'm showing up to 3 pages here. And this is something that we could always import into the system. We have the ability also, if you see this duplicate button, we can duplicate so many things, most things I would say in Sage Intacct. Could be something as simple as a transaction that we duplicate as a real-time saver, but it could even be for a project setup itself. So we could set up a few sample template projects that we duplicate when it's time to make something new to speed things along. And they can come along with all these different cost codes already in place. And then you can modify it from there. So if I were to hit edit on this project, go back to the cost codes, I can see the same list that I had before. You see an add button here, so I could add more cost codes if I needed to. Or if, like for example, in the case of this permit, I will just choose the little pencil on that. And if I wanted to, I could see there's the name, there it is. There's an item that I would use, it's billable, and just see some more information related to it if I needed to. Okay, carrying on, I'll move over to the estimate. So I can have multiple estimates as well. This is one that's called the original estimate. And there's a very clever thing that I think Sage was very clever, very smart about doing. If I make this bigger here, you'll see that I have a very elaborate estimate here. So I have gone down to the cost code and the cost type. These, if I didn't say already, the cost codes and cost types are configurable. So if this layout, or if you do something that's a little bit different in your organization, no worries there. This is a list specific to you. Something that we help with in the implementation process to get set up. See my cost types, my items, and on, along with any kind of memos that I need. And the clever bit that I was about to say is that this estimate here, it's called the current estimate, lives on that project. And if I hit this little expansion here, this is posting to a budget. I think that's a very smart decision. So that means that all the great reporting that I get with Sage Intacct at a financial level to see my P&L and my balance sheet and all those financial statements that we take for granted, I am able to use those very same reporting tools to report on how I'm doing per budget, because this is a special budget. It's not my financial budget, or it's a separate budget just related to projects. And it goes down to the cost code, cost type. So imagine if you wanted to see, goodness, I was really under budget on the cost here. How did I do so well? What cost code was the reason for that? Or what cost type? Was it that I came in under budget on labor or subcontractor or materials or what? So super great. You get to see that. And that again lends itself to the dashboard. I'll hop out of there and I'll jump over to the purchasing commitments. So again, I have a very long list here. If this looks intimidating, don't let it bother you here. This is just, again, demo data. But how powerful is this? I'm here on the project. I click over to my commitments, and I can see all the purchase orders in this case, a lot of subs. That's a numbering scheme that we can set up to have auto numbering if we want. But I can see all of these subcontracts. Some of them have been converted to an invoice. Some are partially converted. And maybe, perhaps if I move ahead, maybe some not converted at all. No, most of these have been, it turns out. But I would be able to see at a moment's glance. So if we just look at this top line here, I can see there was a subcontract to Hawken Masonry. I can see the original amount. Was there a change related to that? A change to the purchase? No, not in that example. The revised amount's the same. Their invoice looks like we did hold back some retainage of $350. And then later we paid that, and we even invoiced the retainage, so that we have since settled up. So we don't have any balance at all at this point. So we don't have that. Compare that to this line 5, I suppose. If I look down to Larson Installation, they also had an invoice, and we did retain $115. We've paid the amount net retainage, so we're still holding back that retainage. We still have that. So I'm Project Manager, I can just pull up the project and see if my vendor calls me up and says, hey, where's my retainage, or where is it? I could take a glance and say, yes, I still have that, and then just take this discussion from there. Or maybe, no, you've been reimbursed. You have that. Change management is a fun thing, so I'll show this here. The way we do this is we have this section here called chain requests. So we're able to log different requests as we go to say, for example, in this case, we have additional signage, what does this say? An electrical for the north entry. So we can accumulate all of our different change requests. These can populate, and then later we can convert them to a change order. So that way it could be a lot of small things that add up to a single change order, or one-to-one, however we want to do that. And yet again, I can drill in on any of these documents to see what it is that I've made and how I can provide it. This can go through a whole workflow where it's approved. I can see how that goes. So this looks like this is updating a contract. I can see the contract is number 1 and line 10 on that contract. This is being updated with cost and price. So I can see this is updating my margin projections as well here. Pretty powerful. Almost done with this, but I'll just hit these last two briefly. If I go to project contracts, this is the contract I saw on the prior window, and I can see the lines on the contract. So this is really great, right? So this was a contract. Now, I guess I haven't mentioned until this point, but we have a lot of flexibility in how we bill our customers inside of Sage Intacct. I can choose to do a time and material billing, but this one's using, I could do quick billing as well. So I could just do a quick invoice to a customer. If some of this is looking like this is more ambitious for you, remember, I'm just showing what's possible. So this is something we could grow into over time if we needed. But I can see from looking at this contract that it was a $500-ish thousand contract that then had an approved change order, take us up to 509. I have some retainage here. And I can even see the line items on here, including the original price, the change order, retainage, and all the rest. And finally, I'll go to my project invoices. This is more informational, but I can see all the project invoices that have happened to date. So if my customer were to call me and say, or maybe I call my customer and I say, hey, I would like you to pay this invoice. You've been a little late paying me. What's the story? And they could say, oh, I never got that one. I'm so sorry. Could you send me that? And I could drill in on that invoice right from the project, of course. I could see, oh, you didn't get invoice number 7 in this example. And I could print or email the document right from here. And in this case, I could print a PDF. I could send email. I can send it to the person's address. I have a PDF that's fully configurable that can show all the detail I need, whether it's AIA billing or whatever requirements I have there. So all ready to go. I'll just skip that though, but you can see my invoice and see everything there. So I'm looking at this project and I'm seeing that we do have all this information here. If I go back to the contract, remember I can see the total bill doesn't quite equal the total contract. Looks like there's that little difference with some rough math. It looks like I haven't billed that change order from what I can tell. Still holding back the retainage, or understanding the retainage, but I can see that there's still something to bill here. So why don't I use this project here called Quick Bowls Portland. Why don't I use that as an example? I'm going to go ahead and make an invoice. So I hit cancel here. Back to my dashboard here. I have this little favorites thing, so I can go down and I could jump around in the system. But I guess I'll show at a bigger view if I go into projects You can see some of the setup. You can see my WIP management, my project management, my change management, items, retainage, just to give you a little hint of some of the features we have here under the hood. But I will go to generate an invoice like so. I'll do that. Bill through June 1st. I like that. Looks pretty good to me. I could change the display of what I see. So I'll leave everything turned on. The system would remember what I do here. So I'll warn you that I'm going to see something awfully busy, but I'll just do it so I can show as much information as possible. It can be a lot simpler if I need it to be. That's okay. All right. So here I am. I can see that I have nothing set to invoice just yet. I can see that I've done 7 billing applications. So I'm going to make this number 8. That looks great. And if I scroll down, I can see there's that contract that we're looking at over on the project itself. And sure enough, I see the original price. Some of these numbers might look familiar. I see the change. And there's this column here where it says % billed. So I can't accidentally overbill a customer. And I can see, like I had mentioned before, hey, there's this one line item here that we haven't billed for, and it looks like it's the amount of the change order that I haven't billed. So if I scroll over, remember it's very busy. I have all my lines or all my data showing here. I could say, oh, I don't know, just to show a couple ways I could do this. If I want to just bill the customer for $2,000, I could do it that way. It updates the percentage and so on, and updates the amount remaining. If that were it, I could just hit create invoice and off I go. If it's more like I want to just update 100%, I could do the percentage and it would fill in the number. So I could go whichever way I want to go. And if I hit create invoice, off I go. It makes the invoice, and then I can send that as a PDF through email, or I could send it along however I see fit. And although it's not relevant to this example, if I scroll down, you can see I do have the ability to bill out for time and materials, any kind of timesheet entries, any expenses. So if I had an accounts payable that was a billable expense or purchasing, I have all this turned on so I can have all this result in an invoice that I pass through to my customer. But that's pretty good. I'm just going to hit cancel on that and step aside from this invoice. And then that can bring me right back to the project where I started. So this was a crash course. I know I didn't go into super detail on all the functionality here. It was more just to show a big cross section of what we had, just so you can get an idea. Hopefully this makes sense. If there's something you want to see here, though, feel free to reach out to us over at Practical Software Solutions. We're happy to set up a time and go through this in more detail and make sure this fits your unique needs. Thanks again. Hope to talk to you soon.